great pleasure to welcome all of you to the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library. Particularly welcome Mayor Park Monsoon from Seoul, who's visiting India, who will be speaking later on. Welcome Mr. Mishra, D.S. Mishra, the Secretary in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Mr. Manish Bapna, the WRI. What are you, Vice President and Chief Executive Officer of the World Resource Institute, internationally based in Washington, D.C. Colleagues from WRI, others, all participants here. The Nehru Memorial Museum and Library. We are always very keen on getting involved in any activity to do with contemporary issues. Initially, this institution is all about history, political developments. We have now branched out into other disciplines. Any discipline which is of concern, contemporary concern, is our concern. So we are always looking for partners. So extremely happy that the WRI has chosen to come here, particularly that the Mayor of Seoul is here. Seoul has so much of lessons for the rest of us. Well, we are busy making flyovers, they were demolishing flyovers, but among other things, I'll not get into that. But there are lots of things that on the development cycle which South Korea, Seoul has done, that's something we can all learn from. How they've recreated their old river which ran through the city, which had disappeared under concrete, So lots of good lessons from Seoul. Let me not take more of your time. We are running a little behind. Let me request Mr. Manish Bapna now to take over.
Thank you, Shakti. It's a real privilege to be able to welcome Mayor Park to this event. We are very grateful that you are able to take some time to talk to us about sustainability and cities. When I think a little bit about some of the most urgent, if not existential challenges facing the planet today, the issue of urbanization, the issue of climate change, the issue of economic development, all are at the heart of some of the challenges that we as a planet, we as a society are facing. And I think we have so much to learn from each other. And so I think the story that you have personally, that Seoul provides, is absolutely crucial to helping us address some of these challenges. So just one word for those who may not know, the World Resources Institute is a think tank. We're based in Washington, but we have about 700 staff around the world. We have a significant presence in India. O.P. Agarwal is the CEO of our India office, but we have a major program on cities and a major program on climate, and very keen to be working with Mayor Park and his team on these issues. I just also want to say one more word about Mayor Park, just how incredible it is to be with someone who not only manages, oversees, governs a city that I think we all find incredibly exciting and inspiring, but that he makes the time to share and to contribute in a global leadership position as the vice chair of C40, as the chair of ICLE, as the chair of CityNet, WeGo. There's 5 or 6 city organizations related to development and sustainability for urban leaders that he plays such a prominent role in. And we're all blessed that you have taken the time to do that, because we have much to learn. So with that, over to you, Mayor Park and Shakti. I just want to say thank you also. There could not be a better place to host a dialogue like this than the Nehru Memorial Library. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manish. Thank
Can
you.
I just request people to switch off their mobile phones?
Okay. Thanks very much for the welcome, Shakti and Manish. What I would request now is that the way we'll structure it is I'll first request Mayor Park to say his opening presentation, followed by Chris Moon, who will make the longer presentation. Mayor Park has already been introduced by Manish and Shakti. Chris Moon is from the Seoul Urban Solutions Agency. She will make a deeper presentation on the urban transformation in Seoul. Thereafter, I'll call upon a few of you to make your initial remarks before I, throw it open for discussion. So may I now request you, Mayor Park, to.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm Won-Sun Park, Mayor of Seoul, and I would like to thank Dr. Om Prakash Agarwal, CEO of RRI India, and for graciously hosting us. And I'm delighted to be here and meet all of you. I met Dr. Andrew Steer, President and CEO of RRI, back in 2015 during my visit to New York. Together we signed an MOU to strengthen the cooperation between the Seoul Metropolitan Government and the RRI through knowledge sharing, staff exchange, and other programs that could be beneficial to related cities and organizations. But I could not check, the development since then. So I will follow and check we should do in future. So it is very meaningful for me to be here and share with you some of the Seoul's key policies, particularly our smart city policies, which I have heard that you are very interested in. I heard that your minister had already decided to have 100 smart cities around India. As you may know, Seoul achieved rapid economic growth after the Korean War in the 1950s. Recently, however, our focus has shifted to sustainable growth in all aspects, economically, environmentally, and socially. So we are applying smart technologies in traffic management, waste management, water supply, and other areas to ensure sustainable growth. Especially with the UN SCOP, we agreed and implemented to establish the urban platform for SDGs. In a few moments, the Seoul Urban Solutions Agency will be making a short presentation on Seoul's urban solution. Hopefully, it will give you a better understanding of our smart cities policies. I'm certain that many of our policy solutions can be applied to Delhi and other major cities in India. Once again, thank you very much for your warm welcome. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor. May I now request Chris to.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Moon. I'm from Seoul Urban Solutions Agency, which is an official arm of Seoul Metropolitan Government. It is a great honor to be here to be able to present the Seoul solutions, how Seoul has grown.
Just get that a little closer to you so that.
Okay, is that better? Okay, great. So I am deeply honored to be here to be able to present how Seoul has developed in the past. So it is with a great delight that I will go ahead and start. So towards deeper friendship between the city of Seoul, the country of Korea, as well as with Indian cities and the central government as well. So I'll be covering some of Seoul's urban solutions as well as how we have developed in the last 50, 60 years, give you a little bit of background on how Seoul is a smart city, as well as an introduction to Seoul Urban Solutions Agency as an executing agency. But before I go on, I would like to show you a video clip that really showcases Seoul's growth. It's a 6-minute video.
Seoul is the city applications and bus information screens at bus stops also provide citizens with accurate bus arrival times, strengthening citizens' faith in the city government. With the Smart Transit Pass, citizens now enjoy not only public transit services nationwide, but also the ease of shopping. In addition to Tasa's call center, which enables citizens to access civil administrative services at any time from any location, Seoul continues to provide diverse services for the convenience of citizens. Seoul is making systematic efforts to create a sustainable urban environment for the future generations. Nanji Island, once a gigantic heap of trash and garbage, has now been transformed into an ecological park and a beloved destination, visited by over 10 million citizens and travelers each year. Thanks to citizens' active participation, Seoul now recycles 66% of household waste and uses its 4 resource recovery centers to incinerate another 24%. The heat generated from incineration is reused to heat and cool 543,000 households. The city's 4 sewage treatment centers provide and purify wastewater, and remaining sewage waste is used to fuel the urban gas system and vehicles. Seoul, a resource recirculating city with low energy consumption. Seoul installed 10,000 photovoltaic power stations in apartment buildings, schools, and other public facilities to generate electricity for 30,000 households. Seoul is turning into a city powered by sunlight, generating renewable energy with citizens' active support. Adisu, Seoul's tap water system, is renowned for its scientific and thorough quality assurance. Adisu ensures that citizens of Seoul have access to clean and safe water above and beyond the quality recommended by the WHO as part of the many benefits and pleasures of living in Seoul, one of the most sustainable cities on earth. Successfully solving the numerous problems of urban growth, Seoul has grown into an exemplary, smart, and green city in which its 10 million citizens enjoy convenient, safe, and healthy living. Seoul now actively shares its experiences and policy know-hows on sustainable growth with other cities worldwide. Bogota of Colombia, Wellington of New Zealand, Baku of Azerbaijan, and other cities have adopted transportation systems modeled after that of Seoul, with a clean tap water supply project in the Janchanayo district of Peru, an urban disaster prevention system development project in Bangladesh, and other similar projects worldwide. Seoul continues to share its advanced policy models with cities overseas. Seoul will continue to share its exemplary policies worldwide in the coming years and lead the movement for sustainable urban development. Seoul looks forward to becoming your best partner for transforming your cities into sustainable and smart communities for citizens.
I hope that gave you a good introduction to some of the urban developments that Seoul has taken. That helps me to actually give you this presentation because you have a context in understanding what I'm about to say. Okay, so in terms of Seoul's urban development, Seoul is an old city and a new city at the same time. So Seoul has been the capital of Korea for more than 600 years. So it is an old city with lots of cultural heritage. But at the same time, you may know very well that in 1950s, we went through a horrendous war, a 3-year war, and that really destroyed a lot of the urban infrastructure that we had. About 70% of the urban infrastructure was lost at that time, so we had to really rebuild from rubbles. So the transformation of Seoul's urban development had that kind of backing. So in the 1960s and 70s, or 50s, 60s, and earlier part of 70s, we were really concentrated, focused on urban foundation, rebuilding the urban infrastructure that was lost, and really just reconstruction after the war. And as Seoul's or Korea's economic development took off in the 1970s and continued on until throughout the 80s and some part of 90s, we were growing as a city. There was a lot of rural to urban migration, and it is also important to note that Seoul's urban development was in parallel with Korea's economic development. So which means Seoul became the house or the location of urban or economic development for the entire Korea. So there was a lot of influx of population coming in from the rural areas, so which gave a lot of stress to the infrastructure that was already established at that time, and there was a need to upgrade it at the same time. And now with this change of the millennium, from the earlier part of the 2000s, we were now shifting our focus to become more of a sustainable city, to become more friendly city for our citizens, to facilitate better quality of life for our citizens. That includes sustainability for in terms of economically, environmentally, as well as socially. Okay, and this really kind of gives you an illustration as to what kind of development phases that we went through from the 50s. And this is not for you to actually read it. This is for the purpose of distribution, actually. And you'll see that there are some really drivers of change in the process, including the 1988 Olympic Games, as well as 2002 World Cup Games. So, in a nutshell, the transforming of the city from hardware-based fast development, we have transformed into an economically conscious, livable, and quality of life engaging city. So you've already seen it from the video, short video, but you saw that the Nanji Island, which was utilized as the landfill, was transformed into a beautiful park. And with that change, we were able to develop that area into a digital media city, which is called Sangam, a digital media city. And if you go there now, it's one of the most high-tech areas where our media companies, broadcasting companies, as well as our IT solutions and contents companies are housed in. And of course, you know about Cheonggyecheon. Cheonggyecheon, it used to be an open sewer in the 1950s, and through the 1970s and 80s, when there was a high push for economic development, we built double-deck road on top of it. So it was really actually functional. But then in the 2000s, we really recovered it and reconstructed into a place where people can go and enjoy themselves. Okay. So I will go into some smart city solutions that we have. We have a lot of solutions that we are proud of, but for today, I will be focusing on these three: water, waste management, and transportation. Okay, so in terms of smart water management, we have a very good quality water. So you'll see that in the slide that WHO requires or recommends that we test 163 items. We test all of them and more, even more, and we pass all of it. So it is very safe water. We do have 100% water supply, 24/7, and you'll see that it is very inexpensive compared to other countries. Okay, and this is a commercial viability for bottled arisu. Our law prevents us from selling it, so we don't sell it. We provide it to our governments and civil events when they are requested. But this is a commercial viability for some cities or some rural areas where actually implementing or building a plant might be too costly for the level of population there is. So you can, this is one of the measures to actually alleviate that. Okay, and this in terms of wastewater management, we went through comprehensive, quite a interesting measures in improving the water quality of our source water, which is the Han River. So we source our water from Han River, and any wastewater that we produce, after its treatment, we dump it back into the same body of water. You'll see that rather than giving you a detail into what kind of solutions or facilities that we've implemented, you'll see that those little dots indicate the contamination level of Han River, and you'll see that it has gradually dropped, and currently you can't swim in it, but it's pretty good. And this is a slide that kind of shows you the progress that we went through from the 50s on. This is to ensure that it didn't happen overnight. We went through a progression. Okay, I'll move on to solid waste management. Seoul solid waste management has two focus. One is waste reduction at source and utilization of waste. Okay, from maximum treatment to minimum waste. So you'll see on the left graph that there was increase in waste generation by the citizens, but there is a significant drop from the 1990s. And one of the reasons is because we shut down our Nanji Island, the landfill site, and we instituted incinerators, or what we call resource recovery centers. But at the same time, we had something called volume-based waste fee system, where you are required to purchase an eco-plastic bag. It's not very costly. I mean, this is about 20 liters, but depending on the size, it would cost the cost will vary. But you need to purchase that in order to throw away your household waste. But at the same time, any kind of recyclable materials, you're not charged for. So which really incentivizes our citizens to reduce the waste and recycle more. So as a result, the statistics vary a little bit from the video, but roughly about 67% of our waste is recycled, and about 35% of our recycle either goes to the landfill or to the resource recovery centers to get recover the waste as a resource. So it yields both economic and environmental benefits. So in terms of, just to give you an example, input waste, household waste, it goes through the incineration and it yields energy. That energy is utilized to run the facilities and captured, sold to our energy company, and that is distributed to the residences. And any remains after the incineration actually are reused as an ingredient for building construction blocks. So, that's, we currently operate 4 resource recovery centers in Seoul. So this is mostly enough for processing Seoul's waste that's generated. Okay, and this is another kind of slide that shows the progression of how we have developed. I'll move on to smart integrated transportation, which may be one of your key areas of interest, I believe. So transportation infrastructure, we have quite of infrastructure. So 14 subway lines extended to 331 kilometers of subway lines, and we have lots of buses and others. And you'll see that on the mode share, that public transportation, that includes the subways and bus transit, accounts for about 66% of our transportation mode. Okay, and a lot of this is actually contributed by the transportation reform that took place in 2004. So in order to, this was really more focused on the bus operation, and I would like to highlight just a few things that have been implemented. So this is quasi-public bus service. So we had issues with operating buses because it was all privately owned. So the management was, we separate or divided the role that public sector would fulfill as opposed to how the private sector would run. So in terms of policymaking and management, SMG or Seoul Metropolitan Government is in charge of that in terms of route designing, financing operational cost and facility management. But then the actual operation is with the bus company. There's an association of bus companies, agglomeration of the bus companies. So they do, they take care of joint revenue management, bus operation, as well as management reform. And we do have a Korea smart card company that where it's really the bus fare system, but they are the ones that get all the revenue, to collect revenues and distribute. So this is, at the center, we do have the Bus Reform Citizen Committee that was instituted to get the citizens' voice into this and running and coming up with this, instituting this process. Okay, and then we did went through a series of fleet improvements, as well as came up with a new bus scheme that's color-coded hierarchical bus system. Okay, and optimized bus rapid transit. We do have bus rapid transit with median bus lanes. Now it is rather a shared bus lane, so it's not a dedicated bus lane per se, like the one in Bogota, Colombo, or Curitiba in Brazil. So it is not the best in the world, but it is optimized for an old city infrastructure that of Seoul. So while it's not the best, it is one of the most utilized. It's because it's optimized and there is very seamless transfer between different modes of transport, including subways. And you'll see that on the right, there's a transfer center. We have about 5 transfer centers in Seoul. Now these are big transfer centers where a transfer from bus to buses to taxis to railways to subway is very seamless and very easy. Okay, and smart card system, one card, all pass. Now, for most Koreans, it's embedded into your credit card, actually. So you don't have to get a separate card for it. So you're charged to your credit card. So you can utilize that for all different kinds of mode of transportation. That includes highway tolls and express buses and taxis. So, and this is, you can use this not only throughout the city, but throughout the nation. So you only need one card to utilize all modes of transport for the entire Korea. Okay, and of course we do have intelligent transport system called TOPIS. It's Transport Operation Information Services, and this is where through different touch points where we gather data. So in terms of the smart card system, we capture about 75 million instances of data every day, that is. So through that, we are able to process that data and push it out to different areas where this can be utilized for citizen convenience as well as public administration. So you'll see that we have BIS services, bus information system, bus information terminals. You saw that in the video as well. We run about 4,000 of the BITs, and at every bus stop, or most of the bus stops, you know when your bus will be arriving. As well as when you open up your app, you know when your bus will be arriving. So you don't have to leave before the bus comes or near bus. I use it every day. So smart card, it's distance-based fare system. So you don't get charged every time you go onto a different mode of transport. So when I leave from my home in the morning, I usually take a bus to the subway station, and then I change to another subway to get to my work. For the entire bus that transfer, I used just one card, and although I put on my bus card 3 times, I'm only charged 1 fee for that entire transfer. Okay. And okay, so I didn't go very deep I didn't really search for a lot of what has been happening in the National Capital Territory, but I did read this newspaper article on October 30th when I was here, last week that is. So based on my findings, very, very short, right? Not very deep, but the article was from Hindustan Times. It was reliable public bus service, a must for efficient urban mobility. And based on that, I found out some things here. So one is low operation cost recovery, which perpetuates the loss in the National Capital Territory. So operation cost per bus per day is 39 rupees about. So then the cost recovery is very low. So the cost recovery rate I was pretty surprised that it's only 6.5%, which is a big issue. And this issue leads to problems in the public transportation. Now, fewer buses, longer wait time, crowded journeys, and reduced routes because of the deficit. So it was my finding from the article that there was a little more than 600 fleets in 2011. Now it has been reduced to little less than 4,000. And this was a big surprise to me because according to my understanding now, the NCT territory is about the area is about little less than 1,500 square kilometers with about 19 million population, right? So Seoul is about 605 square kilometers with 10 million population. So we currently run about 7,500 buses with more than 300 routes. And we do have as you've seen, we have 14 different subway routes. Now, I'm not so sure how many subway routes you have, but I'm not so sure whether this level of bus fleet is enough to really serve 19 million population that you have at NCT. So, so basically, the point I wanted to make, although I'm not an expert on NCT bus services, that prerequisite for controlling private vehicle is provision of adequate public transportation. That was my learning from the past. Okay, and this just gives you an idea of development transportation-related policies and infrastructure. So our first subway appeared in 1971, I believe, and we've grown quite a bit from where we were in 1970s. Okay. I'm probably running out of time at the moment, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background in terms of how this is contextualized in becoming a smart city and how Seoul is currently as a Seoul city. Now, e-government development phases, and now this is really to show you that Seoul becoming a smart city has its birth in e-government processes. So with the advent of IT technology, computerization and IT technologies from the 1990s, we have grown in parallel with the growth of IT technologies. So now from the industrial society paradigm to information society paradigm, we have moved into smart society paradigm. Okay, and this is really, what is smart city? Every city has a different definition, and I think it's actually okay, and I think it really makes sense to have a different definition because every city has different needs, varying needs. So in terms of Korea, it's really meaningful connections, and I think that would be pretty much the same. It's kind of a generic expression. But so it's really leveraging technology to serve its citizens and make cities more livable based on the infrastructure that we have. So the basis is really the network, ICT technology, and data analytics. From that, we are able to make connections among people, resources, services, things, and information. And why are we doing this? First, for the convenience of citizen life, for efficient city management, and transparent governance. Okay, so these are some of the six elements of Seoul as a smart city. First is understanding my city upon big data. Second is efficient city management through ICT and infrastructure. Third, smart IoT connections that make cities more livable. Provision of platform to stimulate economic growth and facilitate transparency and stimulate citizen participation. And lastly, intelligent policy making through big data analysis. Okay, so in a nutshell, it's increasing the impact, efficiency, transparency, and speed for the citizens and city administration. And this is a busy slide, but I wanted to convey that this smart city initiative is fully embedded with the Seoul's initiatives as he produced Global Digital Seoul Plan 2020, and it's really to make new connections and different experiences for citizen participation and communication, stimulating economic growth and improving citizen life through innovative solutions. And through those processes, those efforts, we would like to provide some exemplary practices in the smart city frame. Okay, and these are some examples of smart ICT on infrastructure, like the water monitoring system would be one of many. TOPIS, I've given you some idea of it, and waste management, as well as a host of e-government services. Okay, and connecting people, things, and places through concerted public-private efforts. Now this is really the IoT frame, Internet of Things, and I would like to just show you two, maybe illustrate two examples. One is the smart garbage bins. So rather than going around the truck picker-upper, the garbage picking up trucks, going around at intervals of time, these smart garbage bins, they have a sensor embedded in it. So when it reaches certain capacity, it compresses and compresses again until we can no longer compress and it's filled to its capacity. And it gives its signal to the truck picker-upper, then it can come and pick up the trash. That's implemented in various parts of Seoul. Now, parking lot sharing is another that we use, not very expensive smart technology, where we embed these sensors into these parking lots, especially street parking lots and smaller alleyways, where there is a demand for parking, but the supply is low. And you're able to make reservations on your phone for the segment of time when you need to be parked. So those are two of simple technologies that we use for utilizing IoT framework. Okay, and because I said a little bit about data, I wanted to just give you an idea of Seoul's sample illustration of where we capture our data from. So these are ICT technologies that are embedded into our infrastructure, and as they collect the data, we capture that data and we process them. How do we do that? It's based on having an objective. So which means we capture citizens' voices through our e-government systems and the civil society as well. And we based on the pain points of our citizens, we pick projects. And based on that, we go through relevant data search, big data analysis, draw insights, and we're able to offer policy recommendations based on that. So it's evidence-based, intelligent way of coming up with policy ideas. And through these processes, we implemented about 24 projects in 4 sectors for about in this 3-year time frame. I will end with some introduction to Seoul Urban Solutions Agency, which I am part of. So knowledge sharing, we know what happened in Seoul for the last 50, 60 years. It's pretty fresh in our memory. So we may be able to, we have an advantage because it's pretty fresh in our memory to be able to share this experiences with some cities who may benefit from them. So there are some areas that we work in, of course, and we would like to provide an integrated solution that is the public sector capabilities and business solutions, because every business solution needs to come with policy backing. And this is how we work. SUSA is a very small organization, but we don't do everything ourselves. We are agents that connect the resources with the needs. So we work very heavily with SMG. We're actually part of SMG, and affiliated organizations like the Seoul Institute, which is a think tank, public think tank, as well as University of Seoul, and a host of other agencies in Seoul. We also work with private sectors, international organizations, including MDBs, that's multilateral development banks like the World Bank and ADB, foreign governments and agencies, as well as, of course, foreign cities. So having said this, the services that SUSA has been providing, these are just small samples of what we have done. Study visits. We did have an India-Korea Smart City Knowledge Exchange with the support of World Bank last year. So three of your cities actually came to Korea and went through a week-long study tour and workshops. And we do provide training programs, of course, and advisory and consulting. We currently have some projects going on in Mongolia, Kenya, as well as Kiev. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.